thunder. Many boats have been lost there, and it is a custom with Arabs and natives to throw cloth, Merikani and Kaniki, and especially white Merikani beads, to appease the Mulungu god of the lake. Those who throw beads generally get past without trouble, but those who do not throw beads into the lake get lost and are drowned. Oh, it is a dreadful place! This story was told me by the ever-smiling guide Asmani, and was corroborated by other former mariners of the lake whom I had with me. At the least, this place where we halted for dinner on the banks of the Rugufu River is 18½ hours, or 46 miles, from Ujiji, and as Kabogo is said to be near Uguha, it must be over 60 miles from Ujiji. Therefore the sound of the thundering surf, which is said to roll into the caves of Kabogo, was heard by us at a distance of over 100 miles away from them. Continuing our journey for 3 hours longer, through thin forest, over extensive beds of primitive rock, among fields of large boulders thickly strewn about, passing by numerous herds of buffalo, giraffe, and zebra, over a quaking quagmire which resembled peat, we arrived at the small stream of Sunuzi, to a camping place only a mile removed from a large settlement of Waha. But we were buried in the depths of a great forest. No road was in the vicinity, no noise was made, deep silence was preserved, nor were fires lit. We might therefore rest tranquilly secure, certain that we should not be disturbed. Tomorrow morning the kirangozi has promised we shall be out of Uha, and if we travel on to Niamtaga and Ukaranga the same day, the next day would see us in Ujiji. Patience, my soul! A few hours more, then the end of all this will be known. I shall be face to face with that white man with the white hairs on his face, whoever he is. November 9th. 2 hours before dawn we left our camp on the Sunuzi River, and struck through the forest in a north by west direction, having muzzled our goats previously, lest by their bleating they might betray us. This was a mistake which might have ended tragically, for just as the eastern sky began to assume a pale grayish tint, we emerged from the jungle on the high road. The guide thought we had passed Uha, and set up a shout which was echoed by every member of the caravan, and marched onward with new vigor and increased energy. When plump we came to the outskirts of a village, the inhabitants of which were beginning to stir. Silence was called for at once, and the expedition halted immediately. I walked forward to the front to advise with the guide. He did not know what to do. There was no time to consider, so I ordered the goats to be slaughtered and left on the road, and the guide to push on boldly through the village. The chickens also had their throats cut. After which the expedition resumed the march quickly and silently, led by the guide, who had orders to plunge into the jungle south of the road. I stayed until the last man had disappeared, then, after preparing my Winchester, brought up the rear, followed by my gun-bearers with their stock of ammunition. As we were about disappearing beyond the last hut, a man darted out of his hut and uttered an exclamation of alarm, and loud voices were heard as if in dispute. But in a short time we were in the depths of the jungle, hurrying away from the road in a southern direction, and edging slightly westward. Once I thought we were pursued, and I halted behind a tree to check our foes if they persisted in following us. But a few minutes proved to me that we were not pursued. After half an hour's march we again turned our faces westward. It was broad daylight now, and our eyes were delighted with most picturesque and sequestered little valleys, where wild fruit trees grew, and rare flowers blossomed, and tiny brooks tumbled over polished pebbles, where all was bright and beautiful, until finally, wading through one pretty pure streamlet, whose soft murmurs we took for a gentle welcome, we passed the boundary of wicked Uha, and had entered Ukaranga, an event that was hailed with extravagant shouts of joy. Presently we found the smooth road, and we trod gaily with elastic steps, with limbs quickened for the march which we all knew to be drawing near its end. What cared we now for the difficulties we had encountered, for the rough and cruel forest, for the thorny thickets and hurtful grass, for the jangle of all savagedom, of which we had been the joyless audience. To-morrow! Aye, the great day draws nigh, and we may well laugh and sing while in this triumphant mood. We have been sorely tried. We have been angry with each other when vexed by troubles, but we forget all these now, and there is no face but is radiant with the happiness we have all deserved. We made a short halt at noon for rest and refreshment. I was shown the hills from which the Tanganyika could be seen, which bounded the valley of the Liuche on the east. I could not contain myself at the sight of them. Even with this short halt I was restless and unsatisfied. We resumed the march again. I spurred my men forward with the promise that to-morrow should see their reward. We were in sight of the villages of the Wakaranga. The people caught sight of us and manifested considerable excitement. I sent men ahead to reassure them, and they came forward to greet us. This was so new and welcome to us, so different from the turbulent Wavinza and the blackmailers of Uhha, that we were melted. But we had no time to loiter by the way to indulge our joy. I was impelled onward by almost uncontrollable feelings. I wished to resolve my doubts and fears. Was he still there? Had he heard of my coming? Would he fly? How beautiful Ukaranga appears! The green hills are crowned by clusters of straw-thatched cones. The hills rise and fall, here denuded and cultivated, there in pasturage, here timbered, yonder swarming with huts. The country has somewhat the aspect of Maryland. We cross the Mkuti, a glorious little river. We ascend the opposite bank, and stride through the forest like men who have done a deed of which they may be proud. We have already traveled 9 hours, and the sun is sinking rapidly towards the west, yet, apparently, we are not fatigued. We reach the outskirts of Niamtaga, and we hear drums beat. The people are flying into the woods. They desert their villages, for they take us to be Ruga Ruga, the forest thieves of Mirambo, who, after conquering the Arabs of Unyanyembe, are coming to fight the Arabs of Ujiji. Even the king flies from his village, and every man, woman, and child, terror-stricken, follows him. We enter into it and quietly take possession. Finally the word is bruited out that we are Wangwana, from Unyanyembe. "Well, then, is Mirambo dead?" they ask. "No," we answer. "Well, how did you come to Ukaranga?" "By way of Ukonongo, Ukawindi, and Uhha." "Oh, highly!" Then they laugh heartily at their fright, and begin to make excuses. The king is introduced to me, and he says he had only gone to the woods in order to attack us again. He meant to have come back and killed us all, if we had been Ruga Ruga. But then we know the poor king was terribly frightened, and would never have dared to return, had we been Ruga Ruga, not he. We are not, however, in a mood to quarrel with him about an idiomatic phrase peculiar to him, but rather take him by the hand and shake it well, and say we are so very glad to see him, and he shares in our pleasure, and immediately 3 of the fattest sheep, pots of beer, flour, and honey are brought to us as a gift, and I make him happier still with 2 of the finest cloths I have in my bales, and thus a friendly pact is entered into between us. While I write my diary of this day's proceedings, I tell my servant to lay out my new flannel suit, to oil my boots, to chalk my helmet, and fold a new puggaree around it, that I may make as presentable an appearance as possible before the white man with the gray beard, and before the Arabs of Ujiji, for the clothes I have worn through the jungle and forest are in tatters. Good night. Only let one day come again, and we shall see what we shall see. End of Chapter 11, Part 3.